Ever since I became a dad, man. Like those commercials where like the army mom or dad comes home and like the little kid's like, "You're home," and oh my god, weepy. I'm like, oh, it's just a pain. Anyway, Melanie, I'm proud of you. All the seniors that are represented here, we're proud of all of them. And the 3 that were here last service, we're very proud of you. And you are in the middle of a big transition in your life, a big time of change. And we've all been through those. Some of us are still going through those. Maybe it's graduating from high school, graduating from middle school, retiring, getting a job, your first like grown-up job, getting married, any transition that you can think of, I bet we have represented here in this room. What I want you to do, guys, real quick, and we talk to each other sometimes, don't like panic. If you like really don't want to talk to your neighbor here, this is like your code word, you can just like be a grumpus. That's what I call my son, that you can do that if you want to, and like nobody's going to talk to you, I promise. They'll not touch that with a 10-foot pole. Anyway, think of a transition in your life, something that's happened that's been very pivotal, maybe. And think and answer this question: what are some of the things that you remember after that transition? So go ahead, talk to each other for like a minute. What are some things you remember after a transition in your life? Go ahead. This is exactly the same thing that happened first hour. I asked you guys to go down memory lane, and it turns out it's like a long stretch of highway with no exits. I get it. No problem. Also, here, real quick, because we're already talking to each other and because we're from St. Louis, everybody say what high school you went to, because that's like really important around here. Go ahead. Lafayette. I went to Thunderbird High School. We are the home of the Chiefs. I think still. I don't know anymore. Huh? The Millers? Like paper mill? Flour mill. That is an interesting mascot. I don't even know what that would look like. My sister went to a community college, and they were the Fighting Artichokes. I'm not even kidding. That was they put it up to a vote, and you know what students will do if you put things up to a vote. Fighting Artichokes. So I remember one of the most pivotal transitions in my life was when I graduated high school. And I went off to college, and in that year that followed, there are a few things that I remember very distinctly happening. First thing that happened was my parents sold my childhood home. The home I had grown up in since I was like 4 or 5 years old. They sold it. Like I'm the youngest of 3 kids, Eric, Emily, and then Elliot. That's me, by the way, in case we didn't clear that up. I'm Elliot. And when I moved out, my parents got like a wicked bad case of empty nest syndrome. And so they're like, "We got all these rooms. This is too much house. Let's move downtown." Okay? That seems unusual, but whatever, more power to them. Second thing they did is they killed my dog. And I mean, that sounds a lot worse than like it actually was. Like, he was old, it was his time and all that stuff. But his name was Jordan, and he was like a little collie mutt thing, and he was so cute, and just gone. But the worst part, the reason those 2 things stick out to me more than like most other things is they didn't tell me about those things. Like, for real. I got a call from a friend I graduated with. Her parents and my parents were like close friends. And she said, "Hey, just calling to say congratulations on the new house." I said, "Beg your pardon?" Don't remember that happening. I missed a voicemail somewhere from my mom. In that same conversation, she expressed her condolences for the loss of our family dog, which again, I thought he was still with us. But yeah, that was not the case. So moral of the story, graduates, college students, call your parents so that, you know what's going on. The third thing that happened in that year following college was I decided to move to St. Louis. I had grown up in Phoenix, Arizona. I almost just said Phoenix, Missouri. That would have been inaccurate. I'd grown up in Phoenix, Arizona, and had gone to a year of college there and just sort of felt like I was in a bubble. You know what I mean? Like, everything I had done for my whole life was in the same place. And so I wanted to get out and see the wide open plains of the Midwest, apparently. But that decision has been pretty impactful on my life as it is today. If I didn't move to St. Louis, I wouldn't have gone to St. Louis Christian College. I wouldn't have then worked there for a few years. Yeah, Kendall knows. I wouldn't have met my wonderful, amazing wife and have the beautiful, outstanding children that I have. I wouldn't have the excellent in-laws that I could never deserve. My life is very different. I wouldn't be here standing in front of you at Wildwood Christian Church. my life would be real different. And as I look back over the transitions that I've gone through, I find that those decisions seem to have a way of shaping me, a way of impacting my future. The decisions I make near, in, around a transition time have a lasting effect on me as an individual, on my family, and I suspect the same could be said of yours. The transition is unavoidable, but sometimes they feel very scary, very anxiety-laden, like you're stepping out into the great unknown, and you're leaving everything that you've ever known behind, and maybe everyone, and it's scary. You don't know what's going to happen. You don't know what's around the next corner. Transitions can be horrifying, terrifying. And a lot of the time they feel like it's a goodbye. A lot of the time it feels like you're saying goodbye to people, goodbye to things. And I think that's why so many times in the middle of transition, especially this one that you're facing now, is when people say goodbye to faith. They're feeling lonely, isolated, scared, and they're saying goodbye to all the things that they know, and sometimes the faith that they've grown up with goes with it. More than any other time between high school and college, people walk away from faith. But every transition has that danger. Every transition has that risk. And what I want to do today is visit a story throughout some books in the Old Testament that highlight one of Israel's, the country of Israel, their big transition, one of the most pivotal moments in their nationhood. And I think it can inform some of the transitions that we're facing today, whether it's going off to college, getting a new job, getting married, moving to a new place. Whatever transition you're facing, Israel's transition, Israel's time of movement, can inform and help us decide which decisions we need to make. And my hope and prayer for our seniors, for all of us, is that any transition you're facing isn't a goodbye. That you're not saying goodbye to us, but that you get a chance to say hello to the world, to everybody. You're striking out on your own, and you're getting to make your own decisions, and you're getting to decide what's important to you and what values you need to hold. And this is your chance to decide what those are going to be. So we're going to start today in Exodus 13. If you've got your Bibles, go ahead and open up to there. If you don't have a Bible, there's a one underneath the chair in front of you you can use, and if you're using that, it's going to be on page 55. But we're going to be in Exodus 13. Don't be afraid to use the table of contents if you have to. Melanie, as a side benefit, there's a note card that's a bookmark. That'll come in handy later, trust me. Exodus 13. And while you guys are flipping there, let's kind of rewind some of the story and start at the beginning. In the beginning, God created the heavens and the earth. You guys probably already knew that, right? Like, been to children's church before. God created everything. Like, we're talking page 1 of the Bible. God creates everything that we can see, everything that we can't see, everything. The sun, the moon, the stars, the sky, the earth, the water, the land, the bugs, the animals, the plants, everything. And then he creates mankind, human beings. Adam and Eve, man and woman. And he sets these two, this crown jewel of his creation, in charge of everything. He says, you guys are running the place. You guys are special. You guys are my people. He says, oh, by the way, there's one rule. There's this tree over here. The fruit probably just doesn't taste good. I don't know. But the fruit, don't eat it. Don't eat the fruit from this tree. And Adam and Eve say, okay, yeah, you got it. And then, they eat the fruit from the tree. It's just like my kids. Don't do this. But they do it anyway. And so all of creation now has these consequences. There's this separation. God's created order, the way he planned everything to be, has now been upset. Adam and Eve have gone against him and have broken the one rule that they had, and everything's a mess. But as the story progresses and the downward spiral continues in mankind's dark descent into the bottom, there's hope. There's this one family that's traced, this lineage of hope, all the way through. And it comes down to this guy named Abraham. And God says, Abraham, through you and your family, I'm going to make everything right again. I'm I'm going to turn this all around. I'm going to make untrue all the bad stuff that's happening in the world. You're going to be important. I'm going to work through you and your family. And God does. Abraham's family grows, and they go through a couple of moves, and they find themselves in Egypt for a while. And unfortunately, not long after that, they find themselves under slavery in Egypt. They're enslaved by the Egyptians, and they continue to grow. More people, more children, they grow like crazy. For 400-something years, I think, they're in Egypt, and they're under slavery. One day, God peeks his head into the story and calls a guy named Moses. He says, Moses, not Abraham, we did him. Moses, it's time to step up. It's time for you to take leadership and watch what I'm about to do. I'm going to rescue my people. I'm going to make this, I'm going to get you guys out of Egypt. I'm going to make this all right again. He promised this land, this promised land, see how that works? He promised the land to Abraham hundreds of years ago, and he said he's making good on his promise now. That Moses is going to lead the Israelites out of Egypt. So Moses goes to the Israelites, Moses goes to Pharaoh, the king of Egypt, and after some back and forth, the Israelites find themselves on the way out of Egypt. They do. And they're on the edge of the wilderness. They're about to take the first steps into this journey. It's like they're crossing the Mississippi River. They're like right at the edge, right there. That's like a little distracting. I get distracted easy. I almost said I don't. That would have been a very big lie. They're on the edge. And let's read what happens. Exodus 13. Because I don't know. Exodus 13, and I'm going to start reading in verse 19. Moses took the bones of Joseph with him, for Joseph had made the sons of Israel swear to do this. He said, God will certainly come to help you. When he does, you must take my bones with you from this place. Then verse 20. The Israelites left Succoth and camped at Etham on the edge of the wilderness. The Lord went ahead of them. He guided them during the day with a pillar of cloud, and he provided light at night with a pillar of fire. This allowed them to travel by day or by night. And the Lord did not remove the pillar of cloud or pillar of fire from its place in front of the people. So God shows up at this moment where everything is up for grabs, everything is uncertain, and everything feels like it's imminent danger for these people. God shows up and he's guiding them. That pillar represents God's presence with them. And we'll get to that a little bit more in a minute. But first, something incredible happens. So Pharaoh, the one who has just let them go, decided to change his mind. Said, no, I think I want them back as slaves. Let's get them back. And so he and his army start chasing. And as the Israelites find themselves butted up against some water, the Red Sea, and Pharaoh is chasing them down, breathing down their necks. And they start to panic. They start to freak out. But watch what happens. In Exodus 14, skip ahead a page or so. Exodus 14, verse 19. Then the angel of God, who had been leading the people of Israel, moved to the rear of the camp. The pillar of cloud also moved from the front and stood behind them. The cloud settled between the Egyptian and Israelite camps. As darkness fell, the cloud turned to fire, lighting up the night. But the Egyptians and Israelites did not approach each other all night. So this cloud shows up and he's guiding them. God is guiding them through the wilderness. But when they're in danger, moves behind them, protects them, acts as a buffer between the danger of the Egyptians and the uncertainty of what's ahead. God's protecting them because he's behind them. So graduates, parents of graduates, families, anybody really facing a transition or facing something new. Just like God was behind the Israelites, God was protecting the Israelites, God is behind you. God is there to protect you, there to act as your buffer between the chaos of the world. God is behind you. And we are behind you too. You have a history here with us. You have a past here with us. And we want to act as an anchor in the uncertainties of life. We want to act as your place that you can go to. This heritage that you have. We want to support you. And it's funny, when you know somebody is behind you, you feel like you can take on anything in the world. When you know you have that support system, when you know you have that safety net, it makes me much less anxious about what's ahead, about the uncertainty, about the chaos, about whatever is going to happen. And Melanie, we're behind you. We are here for you. Oh, geez. Sorry. I can't tell you how many times over the course of that first year at college, I called my parents for help. Like, I don't know what to do about this important life decision. I don't know what to do about this relationship, Dad. I need more money. Get ready for that, guys. All the time, like constantly. I wore out my speed dial, and I am very sure that they started screening my calls. Call them all the time, but knowing what was behind me, knowing who was there for me, helped me face what was ahead, helped me face what was in the future. If God is behind you, we are behind you. And if we fast forward from the Red Sea, they cross the Red Sea, God separates it, and we could do 70 different sermons on that. But God parts the sea, they walk through, and they make it. And they end up camped for about a year or so at this mountain called Mount Sinai. It's in the desert. And during that time, God goes up onto the mountain and Moses goes up on the mountain, talks to God, got that backwards. And they receive the law, the 10 Commandments, if you know those. They receive instructions for building this very elaborate tent. It was like a temple. It was called the tabernacle. Everybody say that with me. Tabernacle. It's a very fun word. Tabernacle. And the verse we're about to read, it's going to say it 20 times. So get ready for that. They built this tabernacle. It was a portable temple to God. And it is where the presence of God, this cloud, this pillar, this smoke, fire thing, rests in the midst of the Israelites. And they take this tabernacle with them everywhere they go, and they make their camp around it, surrounding this temple. They're surrounding the presence of God. He is in their midst. And we're going to flip to Exodus 40. It's the very last chapter of the book, and we're going to read the last few verses. As they're setting out from this mountain, they're setting out from this campsite, this is what is described. Exodus 40, and starting in verse 34. Then the cloud covered the tabernacle, and the glory of the Lord filled the tabernacle. Moses could no longer enter the tabernacle because the cloud had settled down over it, and the glory of the Lord filled the tabernacle. Now, whenever the cloud lifted from the tabernacle, the people of Israel would set out on their journey following it. But if the cloud did not rise, they remained where they were until it lifted. The cloud of the Lord hovered over the tabernacle during the day, and at night fire glowed inside the cloud, so the whole family of Israel could see it. This continued throughout all their journeys. This pillar, this cloud, this smoke has been guiding Israel up to this point, and now it is living in their midst. God's presence is living inside of you. He guided them, and he was with them. Just like he was with the Israelites, God is with you too. God is with you, always and forever. Will never leave you, will never forsake you, and he is faithful. And he is with you. In the next season in life, for our graduates, for many of us, whatever is around the corner, the next season might feel a lot like this Exodus that the people of Israel are going through. You're stepping into uncharted waters, new territory. You're striking out on your own. You're stepping into something big and you don't really know what's going to come of it. Life can feel that way. And there are going to be times where you feel like you have just lost sight of everything you knew and all you have is confusion. But God is with you every step of the way. No matter what, he is with you. And we're with you too. I mean, sure, it might look a little different. Might not be in the same geographical region. We might be in different time zones, area codes, whatever. We might be separated, and the time that we spend with each other might be different looking. But we are with you. We're with you in our prayers. I've been praying for all of our students, but especially for our seniors. Continue to do that. And side note, the adults don't know this, but they will be too. Just so keep an eye out for that later. We're with you in prayer. We're with you in every way that a smartphone makes possible, which is a lot of ways. Like, even if you're on an iPhone, there's a lot of ways to keep in touch. Can't all be the cool kids, I know. We are with you. God is with you, and we are with you as well. And I don't live by my family anymore. They are all back in Phoenix, 27 hours away, 27 painful hours to drive, by the way. But I still keep in touch. Talk on the phone, we Skype, we FaceTime, we talk with each other. But I also have a new family here. My wife's family is, like I said, better than I could ever deserve. My church family here is amazing. And I have a support system here, and I have that support system back home. So as you move on to bigger things and better things, we're with you here, and I know you're going to find new people to be with you there. For all of us, any transition, we are with you because God is with you. So the Israelites leave this camp that they've made, and they head towards the promised land, what is today the country of Israel. And they make it there. Make it all the way to the edge. They're at the Jordan River. It's like the boundary line. And they make it all the way there, and they're on the precipice of something great. And then they blow it. They send some spies into the land to just check things out, get a feel for it. And they come back with a less than gleaming report. And the people freak out, panic, and say, no, let's not go in there. We can't do this. They start to doubt God's ability to hold to his promises. They start to doubt whether or not he is indeed faithful to the things that he's promised them. And because of that doubt, because of their inability to trust him, God says, you're not ready. He puts them like in a timeout. Like, you ever put your kids in timeout? Like, all of us have, way too many times. I know. My favorite one, I learned this, I forget who I learned it from. One of my friends, he put his kid in timeout, but like, they don't like it, right? But they get used to it and they like start playing around. So he said, you gotta go stand against the wall, you gotta put your hands on the wall. Like, so you can't like fiddle with the rug or like play around with your hands. You gotta put your hand, oh man, my kids hate that. So like, I guess that's a good thing to discipline, like if they hate it, like that's good, right? I don't know. But God puts Israel in timeout. That was the point, I remember now. God puts Israel in timeout and says, you guys have to wander around in this desert for 40 years. It's a long one, yeah. You guys got to wander around, and we'll bring you back, and you'll be ready. To trust, to obey, you'll be ready. And at the end of that 40 years, we're fast forwarding to the book of Deuteronomy. They've wandered around, and the first 5 books of the Bible are called the Torah. Everybody say that with me, Torah. Torah. Or, this is a $5 word, Pentateuch. Pentateuch. Yeah, it's exciting. You guys just learned Hebrew. Way to go. As long as you got the there, you're good. These first 5 books of the Bible cover basically the creation of everything all the way to Israel stepping foot into the promised land. And the book of Deuteronomy, the last book of that section, is like Moses' farewell address to the people. He's not entering the promised land with them, and he's sort of giving them a recap of some of the things that have happened. And he's saying, like, here's some of the things that are going on now. And here's what God is planning for the future. Sort of like we're doing today. And he's given this farewell address. And he starts with that episode of them refusing to go into the promised land because of their fear, because of their doubt. And he shows us what God had in mind the whole time. Deuteronomy 1, starting in verse 26, but this is Moses talking to the people of Israel. But you rebelled against the command of the Lord your God and refused to go in. You complained in your tents and said, the Lord must hate us. That's why he has brought us here from Egypt, to hand us over to the Amorites, to be slaughtered. Where can we go? Our brothers have demoralized us with their report. They tell us the people of the land are taller and more powerful than we are, and the towns are large, with walls rising high into the sky. We even saw giants there, the descendants of Anak. I know you guys have been like terrified of Anak lately, but he was there too. But I said to you, don't be shocked or afraid of them. The Lord your God is going ahead of you. He will fight for you, just as you saw him do in Egypt. And you saw how the Lord your God cared for you all along the way as you traveled through the wilderness, just as a father cares for his child. Now he has brought you to this place. The Israelites were on the edge of something big. Got almost there, and they hit a roadblock. They hit a speed bump. And the Exodus story out of Egypt into the Promised Land is a lot less about a people obediently following their God and a lot more about struggles with doubt and fear and failure. But even more than that, it's a story about God's ridiculous, unconditional faithfulness in spite of all of that. All of the things the Israelites had done, God remained faithful. It's like you can hear him whispering through the pages the whole time. No matter what you do, Israel, no matter where you go, I am for you. I am fighting for you. It's who I am. God was fighting for them. He was for them. And God is for you. Whatever is next in your life, whatever you're facing, God is for you. He's got a future ahead of you. And all we have to do is follow and trust and obey. And we are for you. We're pulling for you. You've got our weight behind you. And you have us as a support system. And we are for you. For graduates, for anybody. We, as a church family, are for you. And as you look towards your future, you've got some expectations. Some that you've put on yourself, some that maybe parents have put on you, or teachers, or somebody else. Some of those expectations you're going to exceed. Some of them you might barely meet, and some of them you'll miss. And the road ahead is full of doubt and fear and some failure. But doubt isn't the end of the story. Fear and failure isn't the end of it. Those are moments. Those are opportunities for you to lean into God's faithfulness and love and follow him and draw closer to him. You are always welcome back here. No matter what happens, no matter what's been done to you, no matter what you've done, you're always welcome back here at home. God's faithfulness and his grace covers everything, and we have our grace for you. No matter what happens, we are a safe place to be home. And when you come up against those obstacles, when you get partway there and you hit a roadblock, you'll be tempted to throw in the towel. But don't stop. Keep pushing forward. When I was in college, I had my best friend and roommate. His name was Ryan Hitchell, and I've talked about him a couple of times, and I probably shouldn't use last names, sorry. And he was like a homeschool kid. He's like through and through just a weirdo, man, but I love him. He was my best friend. He was great. And I, at the time, had a very terrible car, and you guys know that about me. That's like my habit. I talk about it almost every time I'm up here. I talk about these terrible cars. And this one was a Volkswagen van, 1979 Volkswagen bus. It was amazing. It was orange. It was the coolest thing I've ever owned. And in a lot of ways, I loved it, and in a lot of ways, it was terrible. We went to the grocery store, and we loaded up our groceries in the van, and it was great. And we are on our way back to the school campus, and at the entrance of the campus, there's like this hill that you got to get up a little ways. And we start turning on the hill, and we get about halfway up, and the gas pedal hits the floor, and the engine quits. So we're stuck. Like the only way back is down, like gravity is carrying us that way. So we like parking brake the whole thing. The throttle cable had snapped. And it was just like, we're lazy college students and we don't want to walk the like half mile back to campus with all our groceries. So the good thing was that by this time in the Volkswagen bus's model year, they had an access hatch in the engine compartment, which is in the back, that you could like get to from inside. So I said, hey Ryan, come here. See this hole in the back of the van where the engine is? Like reach your hand down in there and like this is the carburetor, pull on that lever and the engine revs. Vroom, vroom. Like you can see where this is going. And so, for about a half mile or so, I think, Ryan was my throttle cable. And we learned a lot about communication that day. Break! It was a lot of fun, but like fumes all up in his face. It was great. We got part way there, and we were not about to throw in the towel. When you get stranded on a hill without a throttle cable, number one, call your dad. Number two, don't give up. Push forward. Whatever transition you're facing, whatever precipice you're standing at, don't give up. Keep pushing forward. Keep following Jesus. And what I want to remind our graduates, our parents, our families, all of us in the midst of transition, is that God is at work in you. And He has been at work in you. And we've been lucky enough to have a front row seat to see some of the amazing things He's done. And we know He's not over. He's not finished with it. God has been working in your life. And our hope and our prayer is that you would remain faithful to that same gospel, to that same Jesus, to that same guiding pillar of fire and cloud, that you would follow Him above everyone and everything else. And never ever forget, because God is behind you, we are behind you. And because God is with you, we are with you. And because God is for you, we are for you. So everybody gets some homework today. Nobody's getting out of here without anything. If you have your bulletin, you'll notice on this middle page here, I tore off like the thing. On the middle page here is a list of our graduates. And some of those names might be familiar, some of those might not. What I want every non-graduate to do, which is most of you, so everybody's on the hook for this one. All our non-graduates to do, pick a name and circle it. And for the next year, make a habit out of praying for that graduate every day. It doesn't have to last an hour, doesn't have to be fancy or anything like that, just a couple of minutes. Pray for our graduates. This is our chance, really, to demonstrate that we are behind them, that we are with them, that we are for them, and that we are their church family wherever they go. Pray for them. And maybe some of you guys are feeling a little more inclined to take another bigger step in that. There are still graduating classes to come. In our student ministry, in our kids ministry, there are people growing up that need to know the hope and the message of Jesus and His love. And some of you guys might feel like you need to step into that to change the life of a teenager, of a student, of a little kid. Because Brandy in the back with the kids, she needs help. Myself and the rest of the student ministry volunteers, we need help. We can't do this alone, and we are a church family. We are the church together. So everybody, pray for a graduate. This one's Melanie, in case you forgot. And maybe some of you guys, it's time to step up to the plate and start pouring in to the generation that's coming up and affecting the church today. Melanie, you get homework too. That card that we talked about earlier. Your homework is to find an adult or two that you trust, that you know cares about you, that you know loves you. And it can't be your parents. And get their phone number. Because surprise, surprise, there will be times when you need and want advice from someone who's not a parent. Get a phone number. Keep it with you. Save it as a favorite or whatever in your phone. Someone that you can call when the road gets rough, when the seas get choppy, when the rain starts to fall. Because we are here. We're behind you, we're with you, and we're for you. I'm going to invite the band to come on back up. And we're going to sing again that last song that we sang, Ever Be is what it's called. And we're going to take a minute as a family to reflect on this God who never changes. Even when the world feels like everything is changing and everything is up in the air, God never changes. God stays the same. He remains faithful and He remains true, and He loves us. He's the same yesterday, today, and forever. God stays the same. So we're going to focus on worshiping him, on worshiping that God. And over here at the sides, there will be a couple of people that are going to make their way up. And if you need somebody to pray for you, or to pray with, or just to talk to, they're going to be there during this song. And I would invite you to come forward and to ask for that prayer. Or if you just need to talk. I'm going to pray, and then we'll move into this time of worship. God, you are good. You are great. And we are so thankful for that. We are so thankful for your faithfulness, that you are behind us, that you are supporting us, that you are with us, and that in the midst of the storms, in the midst of the trials, in the midst of the confusion and chaos, that you are still with us every step of the way. God, we love you so much, and it's in Jesus' name I pray. Amen.